So I think we waited long enough. Hi, everybody again. Good morning, and thank you for joining today's expert panel on the Iranian presidential election scheduled for tomorrow. With us are Lieutenant Colonel Michael Siegel and Dr. Tamar Elam Gindin, who will discuss the significance of the presidential elections for Israel, the Middle East, Tehran's relations with the international community, and the JCPOA. The experts will also address the impact of the elections on the Iranian people. Lieutenant Colonel Siegel is an expert on strategic issues with a focus on Iran, terrorism, and the Middle East. He serves as a senior analyst at the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs and Acumen Risk Advisors. Dr. Elam Gindin is a linguist specializing in Persian and ancient and modern Iran. Journalists, as I've asked before, just make sure to mute yourselves so that we don't have any background noises. Once both speakers finish, we will open the floor for questions. No need to type anything. You'll be able to ask directly. Just please use the raise your hand button so that I can see. We will start with Dr. Elam Gindin. So when you're ready, please unmute and begin.
So we have now three out of 7 candidates competing for the presidential election who withdrew from the race. It's Ali Riza Zakani, currently hardline conservative member of the parliament, Saeed Jalali, who plays an important role in Iran's head of the Supreme National Security Council. And the third one is it was actually the sole reformist, Mohsen Maher Alizadeh, who announced that he's withdrawing his candidacy in support, probably for the only reformist left, Abdul Nasser. Tamar, please correct me if I'm mistakenly misspelling Persian names.
Maher Alizadeh, Abdul Nasser Hemati.
Okay, thank you. So we are now left with 4 out of 7 candidates, and they are not important. Just to mention another candidate that is still in the race. It's Mohsen Rezai, who was former commander of the IRGC and now is the head of the Expediency Council. I will not go over the other candidates. They are not as important as what, in comparison to what Tamar said about the process itself. But what is more important to say what will happen after the election, and Tamar was right saying that it doesn't matter who will be elected tomorrow, or we'll know early Saturday morning. The realm or the helm is in the leader's hand, and the leader's bureau with all the figures in the Iranian regime, where is it? Falahayan, who was the head of the intelligence, Velayati was the head of the foreign minister. This is where decisions are being made, and of course, above all, the Iran Revolutionary Guards, who actually help Khamenei to stay atop on their bayonets, if you can say. And I think if we I want to leave sufficient time for questions. I think following the election, we can see 5 key challenges ahead of the regime. Both challenges are domestic and foreign, and of course they are all interlinked because there is a very important linkage between domestic issues and foreign policy issue. So the first challenge that I want to address, and I say it's we will see it actually tomorrow, it's the domestic turnout, the legitimacy of the regime, and the stability of the regime. It's the first topic, and I think the first challenge for the regime, we'll see it tomorrow. We'll see the turnout, and we hope that the actual number of the turnout, which is now stands somewhere between 30% and 40%, will be accurate, unlike the elections in 2009, where Ahmadinejad was re-elected, which probably the number 84 or something like this were forged, or not the real number of the turnout. Of course, all these elections were rigged, and the aftermath of the elections, Mousavi and Mehdi Karoubi were put in house arrest. I think they are still there, but I don't actually know what happened to them now. The second topic is the economic, of course, the economic challenge, which is very important. We know the ongoing sanctions that were made more severe after the withdrawal of Trump administration from the JCPOA. That the challenges are huge. The third point is I think Tamar touched upon this issue. And the third issue, it's also a domestic one, is the succession. It's most probable that during the current role or the tenure of the president, there will be succession in the highest position of Iran. There was Khomeini, and then came Khamenei, and then we'll see whether Raisi, that his name was mentioned a few times, the possible successor, will make it to the president as Khamenei before, and will become the third supreme leader of the Iranian regime. It must be mentioned that Raisi has never been elected to public office, and all of his positions, all of his duties were awarded by appointment by the leader or others. And now, of course, if elected, he must prove that he's capable of gaining the popular support for ruling the country as a president and then as a leader. And before, of course, Raisi lost the election to Rouhani. He won 19% in 2017. We'll see now if he managed to win the election. The regime is paving the way for Raisi. But I also, as Tamar, I also believe that at the end of the day of tomorrow or early Saturday, we can find ourselves with Hameti as president. If not, if Raisi is elected, it will be that all branches of power in Iran, the judiciary, the parliament, and the government, the executive branch, will be held in the hands of the conservatives. Another point important for the succession issue is all Iranian presidents, except for the first two, I think it was Abdul Hassan Bani Sadr and Muhammad Ali Rajavi, that was assassinated, have been re-elected to second term. So there are good chances if Raisi is elected or Hameti, they will serve 2 terms as president, and highly likely is that during their term, a new supreme leader for Iran is to be elected. The third issue, the fourth point after the domestic turnout, economic and succession, the fourth point is, of course, what we are involved in and here all the day, the JCPOA and the relation with the West, especially with the United States, which is a very important issue, domestic issue in Iran. And of course, we are now, this week was the 6th round of talks in Vienna between the Iranians and what remain of the P5+1 with Robert Malley hiding in the hotel near the negotiations place, trying to catch up with what's going on. And we still see a conflicting reports regarding what is the real advance and how much advanced are the talks, and will the United States will lift the sanction on Iran. We've seen in June 10th that some of the sanctions were lifted, but on the other hand, we have seen other sanctions are being imposed on the Quds force with his involvement in Yemen. So this issue is very complicated, very touchy, and the Iranian condition for lifting the Iranian sole condition for the US to come back to the JCPOA is lifting all the sanctions. And with Blinken saying that he expected hundreds of sanctions to remain in place, so it's very important. There is also, in this regard, an important domestic issue with regard to the sanction. It was an issue in the presidential election campaign that some people say we are, as the Raisi said, I support the JCPOA as Khamenei approved it, but added that he said that we need a strong government to implement it. So we are now, there was a lot of talk whether the talks in Vienna will be completed before the negotiations in Vienna will be completed before the current election. Apparently not. So maybe Khamenei was reluctant to give this victory of US coming back to the JCPOA, to Rouhani, to the reformists. And now, if a good result for Iran, which means lifting of the sanction, will happen, it will be after the election, and of course we have to see who is elected. Another anecdote, important anecdote that reflects the dynamics inside Iran is what Hameti, which is the other reformist, he says that he already invites, if he wins, of course, he invites Zarif to join the cabinet. And he was quoted as saying in one of his tweets, Hameti, sloganeering instead of pragmatism, adventurism instead of negotiation, and Zarif opponents in place of Zarif. He means that he wants to put Zarif in place. He said in his campaign, Hameti said in his campaign that he don't want the adventures in foreign policy. It also some hints to, if you recall the Zarif leaked tape, that actually who calls the shot in Iran, it's the IRGC and the late Qasem Soleimani. He said that he wants to put Zarif in the cabinet to continue the work with the negotiations with the JCPOA. Of course, it reflects the rivalry between the hardliners, conservatives, which follow the export of the revolution policy, and Zarif, who tried to put out fires that the IRGC and the Quds force is causing all around the Middle East and sometimes even in South America. So this is the fourth point. The last point that I want to mention is there are more. Of course, it's the Iran regional policy, power projections in the Persian Gulf. Of course, the export, the revolution, and Iran, what we say, support of hotspots, dissidents or freedom fighters or whatever Iran calls them across the Middle East, is what they term as the axis of resistance. In the region, we have seen the last round of confrontation in Gaza with heavy Iranian involvement with, of course, public support, supplying of rockets and know-how how to manufacture them, sniper rifles, AT, missiles, etc. So these are the five, I say the key 5 points of the Iranian, or every Iranian president's challenges. And when I say challenges, it challenges vis-a-vis not only the international community, but also challenges vis-a-vis the conservatives and their leader from within. So to sum it up, it's the first point is domestic turnout, the economy, of course, and the sanction relief, the succession issue, which is very important, the JCPOA and the relations with the West and the United States. And the last point, it's the regional policy and the export of the revolution to the region. And now, thank you again for Media Direct for having me. And Tamar and myself are open to any question you may have.
Thank you very much. Journalist, if you have a question, please unmute yourselves and go ahead. All right, I think I'm going to start until you guys figure it out. I don't know that it doesn't have an obvious answer, but does the US and Israel have a so-called preference, or is this just a choice of worse options?
More with the picking of Raisi, because I think Raisi will demonstrate or reflect the real Iran, the real conservative Iran, while Hameti, if elected, could serve...
Islamic Republic. Don't confuse Iran with the Islamic Republic.
Okay. I'll try again. If Raisi is elected as the president of the Islamic Republic of Iran, it will be more obvious to see or to understand or to realize that the real face of Iran is a conservative RAG state. And if Hameti is elected, he could serve again, as in the past, as Rafsanjani and Rouhani and other reformist president, as a fig leaf for Iran to demonstrate for the outside its smiling face, while conducting all its activities in the region, conducting terrorism, export of the revolution, etc. And I think it was well demonstrated in Zarif leak tape how things work in Iran, with actually Soleimani and the leader are calling the shots, and sometimes the Iranian Foreign Office is coming to help and to clean up, to bleach what they did in the region, and to show the smiling face of the Iranian regime.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a question relating to the comparison between now and 2013 and the start of the JCPOA. At the time, we knew that the United States had already reached out to Iran before the election of Rouhani, but Rouhani's election was critical to the narrative of the United States to pursue the JCPOA. So right now, Tamar, you said that this time they're not even trying to play the game. Do you feel that that is because they feel that the United States is so in pocket right now that there's no need for a so-called moderate to be in power to go ahead with a successful negotiation of the JCPOA? That in fact it is the United States government that has is okay with everybody knowing that they have changed their position. They don't need to get the US support from the domestic support for the JCPOA anymore. That the United States and Iran, or at least Iran deems it, that they've got the deal in hand already, so they don't need a moderate to help the US out at signing a deal.
Mickey, your take?
Yes, just to follow up tomorrow on this, I think the Iranian regime, I'm not talking about the Iranian people because they really, I don't want to say that they don't count the people, but I think the Iranian regime now is in the mood of some kind of divine intervention of what's going on and how Iran is doing in the regional arena or in the international and regional arena. We can see that the Iranian regime, as they see, they outlast the Trump administration. Now they outlast the Netanyahu, and we can see all the Iranian newspaper mocking Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli ex-prime minister, and we see the last round of escalation in Gaza with the Jerusalem inserted into this round with the Iran International Quds Day in the middle. I think they see things as a divine intervention in in the Iranian regime interests. So it's very important to see how Iran perceives what's going on in the region, not just on the tactical issues, but on a strategic, historic ground, with all the Shiites in Iraq and Syria and Lebanon. Iran see the bigger picture is good for Iran, and now they are not afraid to say things that they were reluctant to say in the past. They say, yes, we support the Palestinians with weapons. Yes, we support Hezbollah with weapons. Yes, we support the Iraqi militias with weapons and drones. Yes, we support the Houthis, and they are not trying to hide it anymore. And it goes, I think it is interlinked with what Tamar said. They are not hesitating to say, we are here to stay. We are not afraid. What surprised me is that so far the United States were very resilient in the talks in Vienna. And I don't think that the end of the negotiation will be stronger and longer, as I think I'm trying to remember what Blinken said, stronger and longer JCPOA. But I think at the end of the day, it is Iran who feel very confident with this lifting the sanction as a slogan that goes all across the negotiations, and they really feel that they achieved something. They still have the know-how to do nuclear weapons, despite the sanction. They managed to sell oil here and there, especially the RGC through smuggling networks. And I think the Iranian regime, they're very poor economic performance. I think they are doing very best on the strategic, ideological, Islamic revolutionary level.
Thank you very much, Chris, CBN, then Sharon, La Repubblica.
Yeah, thank you for your briefing. It's very helpful. First of all, do the terms moderate and reformist, are they meaningless? And do you see any possibility of demonstrations, or are the people too tired or intimidated? And if you don't mind me, just a couple of things. The policy of Iranian enrichment, do you expect them to go to weapons grade? And can you also address the theology behind the Islamic Republic?
Mickey, unmute yourself.
Okay. Okay, there was always a joke that accompanied me as an Iranian analyst, what's the difference between a pragmatist and a radical or conservative? So we used to say that a pragmatist is a radical or conservative who ran out of ammunition. So this is how we tend to look at this rivalry, which means actually, maybe it means something for the Iranian people, but for the Iranian foreign policy, it means very little. And yes, I think that the Iranians are after the bomb. And I think we must say it very clearly with clear-cut sayings, not to go around these questions. I think the Iranians have shown in their levels of returning to their nuclear program that they have the know-how and they know how to do things. Maybe they were pushed back by all the activities against the nuclear program in Iran, in Natanz or other places, the mysterious fires and explosions and assassinations. But I think the Iranians see the nuclear program as some kind of insurance to the survivability of the regime, and they must be stopped this way or another. In my opinion, JCPOA is not the only channel, or not the channel to stop the Iranian nuclear program. And we have to see how the United States will finalize or not finalize the rounds of talk in Vienna. And of course, if it is not finalized, we have to see what's going on, because the time for the breakout of for Iran to break out is getting shorter and shorter as we speak, with Iran still on the run, on the loose, with their nuclear activities, and we've seen in the recent weeks the new findings of the IAEA regarding hidden sites with hidden activity. And I think the Iranians are, for long, since the Mujahideen Khalq exposed the hidden activity, they are still trying to play games, and they are carrying on with their nuclear program and the missile program, which are related, of course, to each other.